obnoxious kid in the back. Sorry about that. Alright, so while writing my TED Talks, I actually ended up switching my topic because as I was going through my TED Talk and writing it, I was writing it on a topic that was important to me, but I kept thinking about what Ms. Sullivan was saying, and was it really my idea worth sharing? What was it that I was wanting to get across to everybody? And so over the weekend, I ended up actually changing my topic a couple of times. And I ended up going with this one, because this one is one that's actually really close to my heart. And it's an important one that I think a lot of people have to go through. And like Luke was saying, a lot of people struggle with it. It's a really big deal. And I want to tell you guys a story. So once upon a time, when I was in the 6th grade, just like everybody else, there was a girl in my homeroom class who I used to sit by. She was also in my math class too. And she was a really pretty girl, really fun girl. She was awesome. We used to hang out all the time. We were the best of friends. And after 6th grade, we no longer had the same homeroom, and I don't think that we even had another class together, but that wouldn't stop us from staying the best of friends. We were always together. But after 8th grade, we went through this major step that everybody has to go through in their timeline of adulthood. And unfortunately for us, we were in different school zones for the high schools. And for the next 3.5 years, I didn't talk to her, and I'm not even sure if I even thought of her. I'm not sure how many times she would have crossed my mind. Until in September, I was just on Facebook and I was going through, and I saw a name that triggered a wave of memories that I thought I'd forgotten about. It ended up being a GoFundMe account for her family because she had tried to kill herself, and all she managed to do was just blow out her face and had to go under extensive neurosurgeries, more plastic surgeries than you can count, and had to be put into a medically induced coma for 4 months. And that was a lot more than her family's wallets could handle at the time. But for some reason, there was a plot twist to this story, and she ended up waking up a couple months ago. And she is now just a normal, functioning person, though her brain capacity is not as good as it used to be. And because of all those plastic surgeries, she looks like a regular, beautiful young girl. But for those of us who feel like we truly knew her, can't and will never again be able to recognize her. So now we all, at some point, find ourselves asking the question, why? Why is it that we're here? Why is it that we're sitting in this church surrounded by sobbing classmates when we should have just been having a regular day sitting in class with them? Why is it that so many people are thinking that the thought of not living is more rational than the thought of just waking up like everybody else did today? In January, for reasons that I'm not sure I've shared with any of you guys, I moved down here. I decided to move 6 hours away and come live with my parents. And my old school district was called the Battleground School District, and it was in Clark County, Washington. This is a picture of Clark County. It's right down at the bottom tip by Portland, and right up here in the middle where you see it says Battleground, that was my old school district. That's where I used to live. That's where I've spent the past 17 years of my life. Last year, they did a survey among the 8th graders, and they found out that 9% of them missed school due to not feeling safe anymore. And that might not seem like a big number, but it's not a nationwide survey, it's just the county. It's only a couple hundred kids, and they're all 8th graders. They're like 12 years old, and 9% of them felt like they shouldn't be going to school anymore. They did a survey in 2016 about the sophomores, and this is what they found. They found out that of Battleground 10th graders, 32% felt sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 or more consecutive weeks. 18% seriously considered attempting suicide, and 15% made a plan to attempt suicide. Since the start of 2016, we have experienced 10 documented suicide threats, 5 documented attempts, and 4 suicides. But this random thread of suicides is not unique to Battleground. Battleground's numbers are higher than the national average, but there's still 8 counties in the state of Washington that are higher. This is a picture of all of Washington in a survey they did from 2008 to 2012 that found out that our state's average for suicides is about 14 a year. And you can see Clark County down here on the bottom, we have a rate of 16 suicides per year. And up in the top corner, Okanogan has a rate of 25, and Ferry has a rate that is below the national average significantly, so it's considered a no count. And when I was doing this, I always wondered that. I wondered, how is it that one of the counties with the highest rate of suicide can be right next to a county that is considered, that didn't even make it on the map. They just left it blank. And I was asking myself, I wonder why that would be a thing. But I don't know. We always find ourselves asking why in these scenarios. My freshman year of high school, I was kind of a nobody, but that hasn't changed a lot, so it's okay. But I was kind of just my own little awkward freshman self. I didn't have a ton of friends. I had a couple of them that I grew up with through church and other activities like that. And then at the end of my freshman year, a couple of these childhood best friends peer pressured me, they encouraged me, they say, to run for ASB. And I was really nervous, and I was like, I don't even talk to people. How am I supposed to run assemblies? I don't know. They kind of peer pressured me into doing it. And I was just as surprised as the next guy, but I ended up winning sophomore class president. And for the next 3 years, I was extremely involved in ASB, and it helped form me into the crazy, rambunctious, outgoing person that you guys know today. And during my sophomore year, I was able to join ASB and got to know a lot more people that I never would have met. And a lot of these kids were kind of considered the popular kids. And one day they invited me to sit with them at lunch, which seems like the most that seems really stupid and childish. But back then, as a little sophomore, awkward Ethan, I was like, wow, this is the best experience ever, heck yeah. So I used to sit with these cool kids. I wasn't one of the cool kids, I just kind of sat with them. And we used to sit and hang out, and there was this young boy there. He was a young Indian boy, he was an Eagle Scout, he was a track star, everybody knew him. Honor roll, he was super cool, he was just all around a great guy. And I used to sit there every day at lunch, and I used to cry of laughter because of the things that Peter would say. He was hilarious. He was so kind to everybody. And then at the end of my sophomore year, it was the second to last day of school, and this would end up being a huge day to mark in the timeline of my life, but I wouldn't know it yet. But it turns out that day was a half day because of finals, and so that meant no lunch with Peter and the other popular kids. So I just went about my day, just like a normal day, took some finals, and went home. And the next day, my first period didn't have a final, we just had a project, and I had already turned it in early, so I didn't have anything to be doing in that class. So I decided to sleep in, get some extra sleep, and practice for my World Studies final one more time. So my mom dropped me off for school a little bit late and wished me good luck, and I went into the office to check in, and I entered a world that was not the world that I had left yesterday. I could feel that something was off. And a woman who I have never before seen in my life, and I have never seen since, I had no idea who she was in the office, and she asked me my name, and then asked me if I would step into the principal's office with her. So I went in with her, and she asked me if I knew a kid by the name of Peter Matson. And I was like, yeah, why? And she had told me that night his parents had come home from a dinner date to find him laying on his bedroom floor with a self-inflicted bullet wound to the head, and he had died in brain surgery that night. And I remember walking out of there, going straight to my World Studies class and taking my final, and I felt like I was floating. I don't know how I passed the final. I wasn't thinking, I couldn't stop shaking, and it just hadn't fully processed with me yet. And I remember leaving, and we had 4 counselors at the school, and we ended up calling in 4 more from the other districts to come in, and we had group counseling sessions, and we had things that were open to us. A lot of the teachers actually postponed the finals after school, so school ended, and it was summer, but for the next week between regular school hours, at any time you could come in and test, because they postponed it because so many kids were so heartbroken. I remember standing in the commons looking out at 1,600 kids who were all crying during this group counseling session, who were all confused. And I remember thinking, if only Peter could have seen this before last night. If only he could have seen how many people he influenced. If only he could have seen how much I cared. But I guess that's just poetic justice, because I didn't see how much he was suffering either. Every day, people are struggling, and people are always going to struggle. These are some resources locally that you guys have here at the school. You have friends you can always talk to, you have counselors, and you have teachers. Ms. Sullivan has a couple little keychains for you guys that are crisis line numbers that you guys can get from her. And this is a 24/7 nationwide hotline that you can call at any time. Because people are always going to be suffering, and people always will suffer, but people should not have to die. Thank you.